Well, Yvonne, this is amazing. I really, really appreciate you doing this. This is so good.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, do you know, I thought about this before. You're the only person from my year that I was in New York that I keep in touch with.
Really?
Isn't that crazy? Like the transient friendships that you have, especially in the acting artist community, not that we ever knew each other professionally, we knew each other socially, but it just was chance that we were both, well, I was only very, very new to the game at that point. But yeah, you're the only person, and even people that I thought for sure, we're going to have a long friendship. See you later, gone.
I think that happens for everybody to a degree. There are definitely people who, when I first moved to the city, I met them right away at an audition or on the subway or something. And we felt a very strong, mutual inclination towards each other. And now it's been 10 years I've been here, and I don't know many of those people anymore. And I think that's okay. And others have been in my life the whole time.
Yeah, I've talked about this previously, but it is it's funny the ones that stick and the ones that don't, and the times in your life when it's easier and the times in your life when it's harder, and how New York is definitely a place that I feel that you can make what seems like very strong bonds very quickly, whereas in Australia, it takes a lot of time. It's a real different environment. Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know if it's certainly I can tell you from my age group perspective that Australians it's kind of like that LA thing, right? Where people aren't forced to be in each other's spaces so much, so they become a little bit distant. They spend some more time in the car than they do jammed on a subway, where they're used to interacting, and it's just what the done thing. Whereas, our bars and our clubs are these giant rooms that's quite spaced out. Whereas, like in Britain and New York, you've got these little holes in the wall, where everyone's together. It's a bit like that. And when you're 35, 36 or whatever, and you move to a city on your own, everyone in your age bracket has got kids and they've got friends that they've had for 20 years. And it's like, well, I'm busy and I'm too busy for new people. You know what I mean? So it becomes very strange. But when I lived in the UK when I was 20, it was like instantaneous friends. You know what I mean? It was very quick, and you would all live together in a house or whatever. Yeah, so that was an interesting thing when I came back from New York, having been in a place where I was making friends really, really quickly, alone at 32, to moving to Melbourne, and only in the last year, after 4 years, have I made friends that I could kind of count on.
I feel like part of that also is that as we age, we get more discerning about the kind of people we want in our lives. Yeah, sometimes they may not have time for us, but also, I find myself wanting very particular kinds of people in my life who bring me something as well as I give them something.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed, 100%. And that's the same with new relationships when you're older too, right? You have a very clear parameter or dynamic of who's going to come into your world, because if you've got a head on your shoulders, you've already worked out what doesn't work and what does work, and what you can negotiate on and what you can't. Yeah. I just noticed that my end of the camera, you're only just getting the sort of the top of my head. Do you want me to fix that real quick?
Go for it, yeah. My whole head is definitely in this. Oh my God, I can see you.
Yeah, it must have slipped because it was. Yeah, anyways.
I was wondering if your side of the camera was just like you weren't worried about it because your camera was capturing everything.
No, well, I was like, I can see you fine, but then I looked up and I was like, oh, you can just barely see me, so this is better. Well, I want to just sort of semi-start with why I wanted to talk to you, because, predominantly my audience of 18 or 20 or whatever it is Yeah, are all here. You know, it really is like a localized conversation to a point. But this COVID thing obviously has social distancing and what have you has changed who I can and can't speak to for the time being. But also here in Australia, and you and I have spoken about this before, and there was something you said to me recently which I was really kind of a bit like, whoa, shocked by, because over here the holy grail is getting that green card and getting that O1 visa and being able to move to the States and take your acting career to the next level, because it's very esoteric here and it's very locked down. They don't like new things. There's articles written about the 10 Australian actors that are in everything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, whereas New York is the complete opposite. It's flavor of the month. It's fresh faces. It's like, yeah. Let's discover. That was my experience anyways. And I said to you recently, I said, you don't know how lucky you are to be there and have that. Like, even if there's more competition, the amount of work going far exceeds the odds that are stacked against us here. But you said something to me. You said, and I can't remember exactly what you said. You said, the majority of what I've done in the last year has been created by me. And I was like, whoa, like, fuck, that was not what I expected to hear.
I have not been cast in a play on stage in the past 5 years that I did not have a hand in producing.
Jesus. And you're still auditioning for other ones, though?
I'm still auditioning. I mean, I have agents here and I have a manager here, and I get sent out for Broadway and Off-Broadway and some of the more large regional theaters that I'm interested in going to at this point. Because it is all about, as you age, like we said, you become more discerning as to where you're willing to go. And when you have a partner or when you have kids or whatever, you don't want to go to Wyoming for 4 months. You want to go to Connecticut or Rhode Island or somewhere within reason, reasonable distance at least.
Why is that? Like, what's your experience of that? Because, like I said, this was what I think is really fascinating for people out here to hear.
I think there are many factors. I think it's about exposure for sure. If you have interest from larger agencies, if you have a following of some kind from something, whether it be YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, as ridiculous as it is, I think that having a following now is something that's deemed important to some people. And I also think that we're at a place, which I've talked to you about in regards to your new screenplay, that we're in a place where they're not looking for me most of the time now. They're not looking for a white woman with brown hair who's, pretty, but, not a supermodel, plays 20 to 30 for every role, which is fantastic. How wonderful that we're living in a world now where there is a sense of moving towards equality. We're not there yet. Hopefully we will be. But I also think that has taken away maybe from some of the prospects that I maybe had 10 years ago, which is okay. It means that I have an opportunity to create both for myself and for people who aren't like me, and that there's just space being made everywhere in general. It's easy to get annoyed with or angry with, I think, for some people, but for me, it just, I guess, gives me opportunity to make the kind of things I want to make.
Yeah, I think getting pissed off about it certainly is a waste of time. And I understand it. And for me, like, I have a friend who I know it bugs the shit out of them. But because they are, getting close to things and then it being swapped out just to fill a criteria, you know. And so from my perspective, I'm not even getting close to things to even be annoyed about it. So, you know what I mean? It's like, well, fuck that. It'll swing back around by the time I've got enough momentum.
I have an interesting story.
It does. Go here.
Sorry, I have an interesting story about that. For a long period of time, like 2-3 years, I had half of my head shaved, and I loved it more than anything. But so I was going in. This was 2016 to 2018, probably, and I actually got cast a few times while I had that, which was great. And my agents and managers weren't the happiest about it, but I actually got work. But I did go in for the first time when I had my head half shaved for executive producers for a major TV show. And I got really darn close to getting this role, and it was something I really wanted. I knew it was going to be a big deal. I knew it would end up being a recurring for many seasons, and it did. But it was a gender non-binary role. And I looked more like I lived in that realm, even though I'm not. I am a hetero female, and that's okay too. But they actually cast a gender non-binary person in this part. And at first, I had a mixture of how exciting. I've never gone up against someone for a role like this and actually had the person who deserves to get it because those roles haven't existed before get it. Right. But also that little pang of, oh, but I would have done so well, but it's better this way. It's hard.
Was that for Billions?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah. And Asia is amazing on the show.
She's incredible.
I have two friends who star in the show who are amazing actors. One is Australian. He's from Tasmania.
Who's that?
Toby Moore is on the show.
Which character does he play?
Oh God, he's Paul Giamatti's like right-hand guy. I don't know the character's name.
The big fella.
Is he big? I don't. He has dark hair. Yeah.
And then they become enemies.
Do they? I haven't watched all the way through, to be fully honest. I'm still I'm at like the end of season 1, and I've watched bits of like Asia's work because I was interested. So.
Right. Well, she doesn't come in until like I think the 3rd season.
Yeah.
But if it's Paul Giamatti's right-hand man in the beginning, God, I never would have thought he was Australian. His accent is flawless. If it's who I'm thinking of.
He's got a great American accent and just like a nice person. And I have multiple friends who have gone on that show and been on it for a long period of time. And everyone they cast on that show is so solid. They have the most solid New York cast. It's really unbelievable.
Because he was, if it is who I'm thinking of, he was also the Kingpin's right-hand man in Daredevil. And he just plays a prick really well.
Toby is a phenomenal actor. I would love to be on screen with him someday.
Wow, that's amazing, dude. See, incredible.
And we met through another Australian actor. That's how we even met, is working with Josh Hellman from X-Men.
Yeah, I remember you saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you guys are still in touch? You guys are still close?
I mean, we talk on Facebook. I mean, I don't think anybody, no one's close right now. That's for sure. And I think, again, these relationships, you can be in a movie with someone, you can know someone for years, and then they go do one thing and you go do another, and you stay in touch every once in a while when you can. But again, it's that discerning thing of everyone has to kind of go their own path at some point, and sometimes you wave hello and sometimes you don't.
Yeah. And it takes energy too, and that's a hard one too. Is investing in distant friendships can be, not that it's taxing or anything like that. It's just
you forget.
It doesn't become a high priority.
Yeah. And that's okay. I think like I said, like we talked about in the beginning, there are lots of friendships that I've either chosen to distance from or other people have, or whatever it may be. And we all need to do our own thing for ourselves oftentimes. And then, if you come back together at some point, awesome. I
Very
think
true.
it's just about
Yeah.
being a positive influence in people's lives and being someone that people want to work with at some point.
I think that's probably one of the most valuable lessons that I got taught. So just for everyone listening, you and I know each other through we met on Tinder actually.
Yeah.
Long
time
in New
ago.
York.
Long time ago.
A long time ago. God, 2015.
Oh, before then. It had to be before then.
No, it was 2015. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had come back for my second run in New York around the 1st of March 2015. Yeah. And I think I would have met you around the tail end of March because it was still freezing cold. Yeah.
Crazy.
And then you trained me for my audition to TAFTA, which is the television academy here in Melbourne. Because when I came back to Australia, I was applying for a visa through my agent in New York, and then that all fell apart. So I was like, well, I've got to stay here and train. And then, one of the components of this television acting school, which we never touched Shakespeare again, was to learn a Shakespearean monologue and deliver that as part of our audition.
What's the point if you're not going to use it?
It was crazy. So anyways, I got in, but and that was great, and that was just like we are now on video chats, and that was like just something that I never ever thought was going to come across my table, was to have to learn Shakespeare, because one thing I've learned as I've got older is to be very specific with my creative endeavors, because I'm not 15 and I can't dabble in a bunch of different things. I have to be really, really economical with where I invest my energy. And so I was like, well, I'm never going to be on the stage. I don't really have a lot of interest in stage, especially after that show you took me to. And
which one? This is terrible.
Man, we nearly walked out. If you recall.
I don't. What show did we see?
Fuck, I don't know. It was a mate of yours, and it was really fucking bad.
I'm so sorry I took you to see bad theater. There's a lot of it in New York. Sorry to say, there is.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, isn't it funny? You're the only actor that I meet in New York, because I was really still in the fashion world at that point. And I think we only ever hung out 3 times. One, you took me to a play that neither of us liked, and you're sort of looking at me going, I'm really sorry, man. And and then we both tried to sit down and watch The Theory of Everything, which we turned off. Sorry, everyone. We weren't into it.
It was really pretty.
I know.
It was a very pretty movie,
Yeah.
but it was pretty boring as well. Sorry.
It was fucking boring, man. And I know they won Oscars and stuff, but god damn it.
It was well acted.
And that
just was boring.
Yeah, it was boring. Yeah.
We're going to get hate mail.
So, yes, anyways. Yeah.
From Stephen Hawking fans.
It was, yeah. It was strange to have to do this Shakespeare, but I was very grateful that I knew someone like you to help me to do it, because I knew you well enough to not be terrified, because I hadn't really done any training at that point, to then be thrust into learning that. I remember my audition for it, and then talking to my other acting coach who helped me with the standard scene work, and he's like, so how did it go, man? I was like, do not remember it at all. He's like, well, that generally means it's good. And I was like, fuck, I still to this day, I have zero memory of how it went down. Other than to say she was like, great. That was it.
Really cool.
Yeah, cool. Next one.
Awesome.
So, tell me then, before we got on camera, you said that you have been editing for the last 6 weeks or something like that. Can you talk about what you're doing?
Yeah. So I wrote my first short film in 2015. I was visiting a friend up in Rhode Island, and his dad has this amazing backyard, like huge, with this beautiful, pristine blue pool right in the middle, and this like white picket fence all the way around it. And we were hanging out by the pool with my friend's little white dog and talking about theater and life and death and all of these things. And I thought of my parents, and he and I kept talking, and I ended up writing a short film kind of set in that space, and found a producer for it, and we filmed it in 2016, and we have had a lot of really bad luck as far as editing goes over the past 3.5, 4 years. It's now edited beautifully. We had to find a sound studio to take care of the sound because the editor did not take care of that for us in the way we wanted him to. And the sound studio, Studio Unknown, did a wonderful job. Then got another editor who then had to fix credits and fix a couple other framing things. And so like 2 editors and a whole separate sound studio later, we have a really stunning short film that is fully complete. It is officially off to festivals. We submitted it to 10 festivals that we are highly interested in. It's a stunning film. It's 23 minutes long, so a longer short film. Awesome cast, like some of my favorite people in the world, and just the 7 of us hanging out in New Jersey filming this thing was one of the best experiences of my life.
And what's it called?
It's called Take Me With You. It was directed by Gary Memme, and it stars Spencer Garrett, who is from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Bombshell and lots of movies. Spencer's in everything, and he's a phenomenal actor and human. He's actually running the only SAG-AFTRA contract right now during the COVID crisis. It's called Quarantine the Series. And it's based off of the lives of soap opera actors who are now out of work and Zooming with each other. It's very cute. It's great. So he's in it. James Udom is in it, who's a wonderful up-and-coming actor. David Holmes, who's starring in High Fidelity on Hulu with Zoe Kravitz. Like, just phenomenal cast, great people, great times. It's so near and dear to my heart. That whole experience was so positive. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm sorry because I'm going through that post hell myself for a short film, which will probably end up being around the same amount of time. 23. Well, it's actually about 45 minutes worth of consecutive footage at the moment. It's brutal. And so tell me, like, if you can, why, like, did you know? Because this is what seems to happen a lot is that, and it's the same in my case, we get enough momentum to get everyone together, to shoot it, to get the funds, and it gets shot, and then you're sort of left holding the ball afterwards, and everyone, there's this mentality of, if we'll just get it shot and it looks great, someone will swoop in and take care of the rest or whatever, or maybe I'll be able to save enough money to do the second part, or maybe someone said that they would do it, and then within the time it took to then get around to that, they're like, I can't do it anymore. What happened for you?
I was left holding the ball completely. I held this baby in my hands by myself for 4 years, basically. It's what it feels like. I mean, the director's fantastic, and he has, especially since the film's been in this last little process, he's been phenomenal in helping get stuff together for festivals, and it's been amazing, and I love him. And the executive producer, along the way, like, he was there, but I had to really push him. And in the end, it was he and I and Spencer and another actor from the film, Clayton Stalker Myers, who just rounded up even more money and, like I said, had to pay this sound studio to fix our sound for us, which was the biggest thing. And raise money for festivals.
Always the sound.
It's always, if you have shitty sound and shitty lighting, you have a shitty movie.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your
up.
acting is. I don't care how good the story is. If your lighting and sound sucks, I'm not going to watch it. And no one else will either.
It's annoying. It's distracting. Yeah.
So I was like, I would rather wait an extra 2 years and make sure that we have a beautiful looking and sounding film, along with how beautiful the story is, in my opinion, and the acting, in my opinion. I was in it too, but like everyone else was amazing.
Yeah.
I would rather wait and take time than put out a product that I'm not satisfied with. I have never put out a product that I am not 100% behind as far as that goes. And same with the 2 other projects I'm working on right now. So, yeah.
So what can I ask what happened? Why this, like, what was wrong with the sound and why the giant hiatus? Like,
the sound was actually relatively great. It could have definitely gone off to some festival with the way that it was. And even our sound studio and our sound mixers said that. But because we shot outdoors, the entire film, other than one small scene, happens outside. It was in the middle of summer. We had the pool on, we had the jacuzzi on, we had all of these sounds that are really great for ambiance, but in small doses. If you have an entire scene in a hot tub and all you hear in the background is the hot tub going, that scene is not usable. And it had to be usable because it was a major plot point of the film. So just had to wait and raise the money and find the right people to do that, because if you're willing to put out a product that is not to you perfect, it may not be perfect, but to you perfect, I don't think you as an artist are ever going to be satisfied with it. You're never going to feel like it was really complete.
It's going to bug you.
It's going to bug you, yeah. And I don't want to walk around with regrets for the work that I've made, you know?
Do you find, I've got 2 questions, don't let me forget them. Okay, first question. So did you have to do a lot of ADR for this, or was it all salvageable?
0 ADR.
Okay, that's great.
0.
That's awesome, because ADR sucks.
ADR sucks.
Yeah.
I am very happy we did not have to do any ADR. And that was the biggest worry, was that we'd have to go back in and get the actors back in and do all this work, and I fought tooth and nail to not have to do that. I also fought tooth and nail to get a drone on this shoot, and I kept being fought. And then after we had it and we had the shots, everyone was like, "That's so great." And I was like, "I know. That's why I fought for it."
So were you okay, now I have a third question.
Okay, second question first.
I don't want to forget this. Yeah. Let me ask you, what was your hierarchical sort of position on this film? Being someone that was acting in it, writing in it, raising the funds. It sounds very similar to my situation. You're kind of across 3 hats, 4 hats. Yeah. Was that hard for anyone, or was that a conflict?
It wasn't hard for me. It wasn't hard for the director. I think our DP and editor found it hard at times because I was co-starring in it with 6 other people. It's an ensemble piece. We all have an equal amount of screen time. So co-starring in it, produced it, wrote it, was crafty. I cooked every single meal 3 times a day for the entire cast and crew for the entire week that we were together. And I was basically assistant directing, saying, yeah, you can cut this. No, you should add this in. Yes, I want the drone. I fought for the drone for days, like begging for certain things not to be left out because I knew they'd be used later on, and they were. So I think that across the board, it was very, very smooth. Even the tiny little hiccups that we had, or moments where I felt like my opinion wasn't wanted in that moment. It was never angry. There was never true conflict. It was pretty smooth, and that's because most of us knew each other, trusted each other. We were being taken care of by wonderful people, staying in beautiful houses on the Jersey Shore. Like, it was just such a calming experience in general, being there and being together, that even those tiny little things, like, they were smoothed over so fast. It was never really a problem.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. Because I found that I didn't find it tough. Everyone else found it tough. That I was, like, I paid for the film and it was shot at my house, and I co-wrote it, and I was producing, and I was acting in it. And so I had a very
you were close to it. It was precious to you.
Well, a very weighty opinion on it too, right? Like, it is your role as a producer to come in and stop something that isn't working, or edge it towards where you want it to go, and what have you. So that damaged a lot of egos, 2 egos. But But we've made a little bit of headway. But that's nearly, it's 18 months ago that was shot, and it was supposed to have been wrapped up within 4 months of, and my experience. And I won't go into it too in depthly, but just to back and forth with you, is that they came at me for full creative control of the film after it had been shot. And I was like, huh? What? So you want me to contractually hand over the rights to my film? Why would I do that?
You're not the first person I've heard say that.
It's crazy.
Crazy. I've never experienced it, but I've heard of several people having gone through that.
Well, what was crazy to me was, A, why do you think that you're entitled to this? B, who hasn't stopped you to tell you that this is crazy? Because I've spoken now to the Directors Guild, to producers, to a collection of people who between them would have 200 years experience. None of them agree with you and can understand why you would try and do this. And I put the film on ice for 12 months because I had to take it off them, But in the end, I actually handed it back over and I said, well, you can have all the things you want, but you have to pay for all of it. So now the entire post-production is yours. So, but they're trying to do their best to not pay for any of it. So, but anyways, but they've got me a first draft cut recently, which was in the nick of time. I said, you have until the 29th of Feb to have that done, and they had it on the day.
Wow.
But my other question was, because this is something that I worry about, and maybe it's because, and I could be wrong, that you're in your early days of acting, your progress curve is very rapid. You can, if you're chipping away at it from your very first self-tape, 4 years down the line, your self-tapes should be chalk and cheese, like all your performances. So, and I've looked at the footage the other day, and I'm not like, fuck. But I'm like, I also am aware that I've been acting for another 2 years, and that maybe I'm disconnected from this film by the time it comes around, and that's a concern. But by the sounds of it, for you, which is great.
That's not for me at all, and that's okay. I think we all have our own process. But I think also one of the best pieces of advice I recently read when I was looking for new editors to help fix these little things about Take Me With You, I wish I could remember who I read it by. It was some blog by an editor-director online. And he said, the worst thing a director, producer, writer could be when it comes to the editing of a film is attached to it. You want to be completely indifferent to whatever you filmed on the day, to whatever you think something should be about it. And you just want to be an objective observer and create the best story possible. It's really hard to create the best story possible if every single moment that you filmed is so precious to you, you can't cut it, or you can't see that it's not as good as maybe someone else's, scene or something else that, could fit in there, that maybe something else should be cut. So while I like my work in it, I like my work on it, I like my work in all the films I've made, to be honest. Like, I hope everybody does to some degree, like their own work and like themselves, because we as actors self-hate a lot. We have very low self-worth and self-esteem, and it needs to stop, because we are worthy, and we are wonderful and beautiful and talented and smart, and failures at everything, which is what makes us great actors and winners eventually. You have to fail to succeed. So yeah, I think that while I don't hold anything precious, I enjoy all the work, which makes me, I think, able to be both objective and excited at the same time. Excited for what it will be, excited for what it was. And I let lots of people in along the way as well. I get different people's opinions. Okay, did you actually like that? Do you think we should use that? I don't know if my writing here is so good. Can we cut this? Can we put something else in there? But but I think it's different for everybody.
It is different for everyone, and I agree with you 100% on that. It's really good that you say that, because I've talked about this on the podcast before, and it's something that I've believed for a lot of years, that if you don't like it, if you're a creative, why the fuck did you do it? You know, it's one thing to do something that you believed was going to be great and it turns out it wasn't so great, and you acknowledge that. Like, it really, really isn't. But it's another thing to just hate on everything that you've done because you feel like, well, maybe, maybe you are super depressive, but and I'm sorry about that, but maybe you also think that that's the cool thing that you're supposed to do, that you're like a fucking Marlon Brando or Johnny Depp who never watches their own stuff and just thinks everything's rubbish, which I think is, having like studied at art school and seen it happening and it's terrible. Like, it's this pre-programmed idea that you're not allowed to sit there and go, oh yeah, that was fucking good. You know, like, you have to pretend that you think it's shit while secretly you're like, yeah, that was awesome. You know, there's a bit of that happens, and I just think, well, fucking, I'm calling you out because I don't believe you, or why the hell are you doing it if you don't like it?
I do agree to an extent. I think it's wonderful to be modest and to be humble and to be grateful and thankful for everything that happens to you in your life, for every opportunity that you have. It's also okay to be modest if you aren't enjoying the work that you did. I think that's fine. But yeah, the idea of like the self-hate, or I'm shit in that, or I'm not going to watch myself on screen because I hate the way I look, I hate the way I sound. I have those moments too, but I still watch and I still listen, and I try to learn from myself when I don't like certain things that I do, my tics, my habits, my inability. Yeah,
especially in
my
screen
inability
work.
to slow down.
Yeah.
Sometimes I talk really fast, and that's something that's been I've done that my entire life. But just like I watch another actor's work and I learn from it, I watch my past work and I try to learn from it. And I can't do that if I'm sitting there hiding myself from myself. Like, I can't hide from me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm always there. You're the
always
one
there.
person you can't hide from. You have to be able to live with yourself and work with yourself if you want to live and work with others.
100%. Yeah. I've said this before. I'm still tackling with. I am on the other side of it, where I'm still so proud of myself for finally becoming an actor that, excuse me, I think that everything that I do is really, really great. I'm like, wow, you're really doing it, buddy. You know, and recently I did this scene for like an online club that. It's international, but it's based here in Australia, called Stage Milk. And a really great guy called Andrew Hurl. He runs this great online club, and it's every month you submit a piece and they select the pieces for you, or you can do your own, but there's like online classes and there's heaps of resources, and then he has like 3 Zoom chats with big directors and actors and what have you, and it's really, really great. And I submitted my piece this month, which in my own mind, I was like, fuck, yeah, that's pretty good, man. Like, I was really, really happy with it. And he just tore it apart. And not in a bad way, because he's very, very kind and very gracious and what have you. But it was just like pretty much nothing good about it. And it was an interesting one because I had to come back to him and sort of say, shit, we need to break this down a little bit more, because like I'm not actually getting anything that you're saying. You know, it was a really strange review process for me, like, because I really thought that I'd hit the mark. And one of the things was just a lack of communication in how to tackle this isolated monologue in just as a standalone scene. So I took it completely out of context from the show and made it something entirely different, which has been taught to me as an exercise that you can do in acting, just, you know, like, you're not that guy, right? Like, it was from Mr. Robot. I'm not Rami Malek. I don't look like that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. And I don't want there to be any association to whomever may watch it and go, oh, that's from Mr. Robot, and geez, he's doing a bad Rami impersonation. But actually, they wanted me to stick to those given circumstances. So they're watching it going, well, this doesn't fucking make sense at all. I'm not sure what's happening in this at all. So, yeah, and that was, one of those conversations where I was waiting for that email to come back and be like, great work, buddy. You know?
How amazing. How amazing to have an opportunity to learn from your own work, you know? Very
much so. Yeah. And that was what's really great about Andrew, and that, you know, then I was able to send him like a 10-minute voice message, like breaking down all of his notes and beats, so that with the setup of, I really want to come out the other side of this conversation knowing how to move forward. So I'm not ringing you now to say, fuck you, man, this is bullshit. I poured my heart and soul into this thing. And, you know, and we did. We found a really nice through line that then we sort of met each other in the middle and that I can take. And one of those things, it's a common thing actually I found, like in my last sort of 3 or 4 things that I've submitted to people to review, is just sometimes I'm leaning in a little too hard, you know, on those key moments where you could just tighten it up just that little bit more, you know, and not sort of lament or bury into it, just, which is so fucking weird that we do this, right, when we're learning, because we think it needs to be there, but you would never do it in real life.
Too, for some reason, I don't know why we do this, because I've definitely done it. We get bogged into a specific emotion and we wash the whole piece with that emotion of sorrow, of revenge, of anger, of lust, of whatever it is, instead of playing every line, every objective word as a new emotion, a new tactic, a new action, a new way to manipulate and get a reaction from the person you're talking to, whether it's the audience and you're doing a soliloquy from Shakespeare, or it's a monologue in a TV series or a film or a contemporary play. I mean, the whole goal is to get a reaction from somebody else. And we don't ever just talk to someone in one way. I'm not doing this whole interview with you really angry or really hopeful or really whatever. Like every moment is a new, you know, a new mountain and valley.
Well, therein lies the real skill, especially in self-taping, where you're not cutting to anyone else's reactions, and you have to, it's a different pacing and it's a different momentum, and the task, like, it's okay if you're being asked to do an 8-minute monologue where you've got the space for the big change, well, not big changes, but for those changes. But when it's, okay, keep it under 2 minutes, but also color it, you know, but without, and so that's the skill, is to do it in an effective way and not in a over the top way. Oh, there's that beat, beat, you know, and these big, you know, relying on disingenuous affectations and what have you. That's the skill.
And I can't say that I am a master or expert at it. I don't think most people are. I think that some people do become that. They audition wonderfully, or they self-tape wonderfully, or they audition live wonderfully, but it's a hard place to get to, that you can be in the room and be perfect, self-tape be perfect, be on stage and be doing it in front of a theater full of empty seats, but a director and a casting director sitting in front of you would be perfect. I mean, they're all different skills, and you got to pick up those abilities and manipulate them for yourself in whatever way you feel right.
Yeah, it is. It really is a whole new skill unto itself. And I do love, it's one thing that I do love about the space that we're in. Some people say that they don't, but I really, really do love the self-tape world. Like, Not, and I don't sit there and do 20 takes. Not typically, because I'm just like, I really like to find it quickly. All right.
It's always the last one.
Like if I'm getting to... Right. Yeah, it is always the last one for sure. I think that it should be, because if you got it on the first, then what the fuck were you doing with the rest?
Good for you. If you're getting your self-tapes done in one take and you're getting cast from it, like, I bow down to you. Please teach me your ways.
100%. Yeah. I definitely... One thing I do like, this is the thing that I do now, because, and also I'm not auditioning for... I've only just recently auditioned for something of any kind of gravity or size. It's taken 4 years to finally sort of crack that open a little bit. But everything else that's come before it, especially in the last couple of years, or last year maybe I should say, I've tried to develop the skill of being able to find it quickly, so I'm not spending 2 weeks preparing a fucking 2-minute audition for an independent short film that's not being paid.
Never.
You know what I mean? It's I'm just, because in Australia we can't cold read like you guys. That's a difference too. If you have the sheet in your hand in an audition,
I never
you'll get
had the
kicked
sheet
out.
in my hand ever.
It's
I know in some CDs they want you to be memorized, but hold it in your hand, and I'm like, no. I'm not holding that sheet in my hand. You will never see me holding a piece of paper in an audition unless I walked outside and had to get to know the scene 5 minutes ahead of time. Just never. Yeah.
Right. Because that's really, I mean, they talk about it a lot in that LA, it's like cold read city. Like no one's off book. Whereas here, you can't have the sheet ever.
I mean, I'm going to be spending a lot more time in LA soon. So, that's going to be interesting. I don't know. Hopefully there's time to memorize. I mean, I memorize things, 20 minutes before I do them, so that's not really a problem.
Well, you're lucky.
I don't really count. I have a photographic memory, so I don't count. Yeah. You don't even put that in the podcast. People usually get angry at me when I tell them that.
Yeah, I can feel my blood boiling now. I'm the worst at remembering lines, and I don't know why it is. Whether it's just the ADD side of me that just finds it really hard to sit there and read and over and over and over and over. So that's why I really try and do everything else before I learn the lines, so that hopefully by that point they will start to stick. But certainly my sort of objective at the moment is to see how much I can pick up and redirect in a performance quickly on instinct, so that I can be good in those quick situations. Or if I do get a part in a show where you're getting scripts the night before and you just then have to really rely on just your understanding of the story and the beats and what have you, and you can just say the words inside that given circumstance and they will, as a last resort sort of thing, just as a technique, Because that really, I remember listening to Anthony Hopkins talk about one of his big breakout films. I want to say it's called The Lion, but I could be wrong. It was with Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. Right? Like, incredible. And he said, I didn't have to do much, like I didn't have to worry about any of my physicality or where my eyes were going, because everything, I was shooting in a castle and everyone was, that's one of the amazing things of a proper set and what have you, and great reactions from the actors around you and all this kind of stuff is you just knew the words and knew the given circumstances and everything else was taken care of. And you let it take care of you.
If only we all had that luxury all the time. To do my self-tapes in a castle.
So
no, he's amazing.
He's
amazing.
That's pretty awesome. Talk to me now. The film's gone out. You've got 10 sort of festivals and there's that whole waiting game that's looming over you now, waiting to hear back about that, which is awesome. And please keep me up to date about that. And do you have a trailer for that?
We do have a trailer for it, and I'll share with you the film. Like I'll just send you the film and you can see it, and it's private, but yeah.
No. Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And then if you have a trailer or like a public link that I can attach to this for people to check out,
sure.
would be awesome.
Yeah, it's an older trailer, but it's good. So, yeah.
Are you still doing online coaching?
I teach yoga mostly now.
Okay.
And I save my acting coaching for just friends who just need some extra little, oomph.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm mostly just writing and producing and auditioning and preparing to spend the next pilot season, if it exists.
I hear that it's starting to just be all year round now.
In LA. It's sort of like summer's always pretty dead, and then, the winter, like December, January is pretty dead, and so on. But I'll be spending my first like actual pilot season in LA. So
And you're from California,
I'm
right?
from LA. I'm from LA, and I've never acted in LA because I went to school out there and then literally graduated, moved to a theater company that's a commune in Massachusetts, lived there, acted there, then went on tour in DC and Virginia and Maryland for like 6 months, and then moved to New York, and then I've been here for 10 years. So like I never got to be an LA actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So
this will be great. I'm keen to see how that goes for you. That's really, really awesome. But tell me what's next. Like, what are you working on? Like, if you're writing a lot, talk to me. What's the one that is like firing in your brain right now?
Oh my God. Well, I just actually finished writing a one act for a festival that I'm actually really proud of. But I'm starting work on my first feature.
Okay, great.
I can't really talk about it because it's based on a true story, and I'm currently in negotiations with the person who it's about for the life story agreement. So until the life story agreement is signed, I can't say
Got you.
who it is, what it's about. But what I can say is that it is a very timely piece, and it does have to do with the LGBTQ, many other symbols and words that I can't remember, and I'm sorry if anyone's watching this. I'm sorry I can't. Please feel free to educate me. Community. And I'm looking forward to talking to a lot of people in that community who can, like I just said, can educate me more, because there's a lot I don't know. And I'm both really terrified and really excited to work on this project because there's a lot that I don't know.
And can I ask you how it came to you, like sort of the events of?
Yeah. So a friend of my parents actually is friends with this person and heard this person's life story. And generally, someone says to you, I have this great story, you should write about it, or I have this friend of a friend and you should write about them. And it's like, leave me alone. Please stop talking to me. I have my own ideas. I have my own brain. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I sort of was like, yeah. And then like I ended up actually talking to this person and was in complete awe of their, like, I'm going to start crying thinking about what they've been through in their life. And I was just in awe, and this person is just so unbelievable, like as a human being, so joyful and ebullient after what they've been through. And I even told them, like, I don't feel like I have the skill set to tell this story because it's not my background. But then they were like, but I want you to be that person, because of trust, because of respect, because of our just artistic merit, whatever it may be. But so like I said, I'm terrified, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot and to talking to a lot of people, and hopefully even bringing somebody on to consult as well. Because it's the kind of story where I have a very strong idea, and it's going to be dramatized in a very specific way for me. It's very stylistic for me. But I still want the truth of it to be very clear.
And will you play this character as well?
No, I will not. They asked me to play them. And I said no. Because I feel like there are many, many, many actors out there who have a closer experience to them who could play this part absolutely beautifully. And there's actually another part of someone else in this person's life that I feel I would fit into better.
Right.
I've also never written anything for myself to play the lead in, ever.
Okay.
Every film I've written, every short play, everything I've written has had a part for me that is enmeshed within the ensemble, that I star in things, but it's not about my character. It's about a group of people or a specific character that I'm supporting around. I don't really feel the need to write myself as the star. I don't know why. It's not that I feel like I don't deserve it. It's just that I just don't feel the necessity. I care more about the ensemble.
But, I mean, do you feel like that it's arrogant to do that?
Depends on the person. I think that entirely depends on the human being telling the story. They are arrogant human beings writing stories for themselves, and they are very modest, compassionate, loving, thoughtful human beings writing stories for themselves. And I don't think I can lay a blanket statement about anybody.
Yeah, true. Agreed.
I try to stay away from those in general.
Yeah, that's a good way to be. Let them reveal themselves to you first. How does that whole, what did you say? It was a life story agreement? Mm-hmm. How does that work? Just because this side of things as well is very fascinating to me.
Sure. You basically have two options when it comes to making a story based on a private person's life. If you're writing a story about someone in the public, a newscaster, a celebrity, a president, whatever it is, you don't need the rights to their life because their life's been publicized. But if you're working with a private citizen, you have to either get an option / option to purchase, or a purchase agreement. If you're getting an option, you basically have a short period of time, anywhere from 12 months to 24 months, to get the piece written and get a producer interested and sometimes get approval by the person it's about. Generally, the person who it's about, the owner of their life, does not have the right to approve or disapprove of your story. If you're doing a purchase agreement, a full-out purchase, then you're buying that person's life rights either for a very long period of time or in perpetuity, forever. So yeah, and the same goes for theater generally, but for theater, let's say you're adapting something for the stage, an option agreement is more the generally used contract.
And what's the dynamic here with you guys? In
what way? Can you unfold that a little or unpack it?
Because she's come to you. And so what is it that you're waiting on now, for your agreement to go through?
Oh, we just need to sign the contract. Everything. I mean, this contract is very, very specific and very detailed, and it's basically now just me. I've made sure that everything is in there, both to protect me and protect them. And now I basically said, take as much time as you need. Talk to a lawyer. Take a look through everything. If you have questions or you need to negotiate certain things or you have hard rules that you need written down in this contract, you let me know and I'll work with you. That's how I am anytime I deal with an option contract or a purchase contract. I'm very much, a negotiator and someone who's willing to kind of be flexible. I don't feel the need to push an agenda on anybody else. So
that was a question that was popping up in my mind when you were talking about that. She has to come, you both lawyer up, and then with the contract, is that, because this is really fascinating to me. This is something I've never, like, I don't know the inside how these things work. She's come to you. You've made it a specific contract. How does it work in terms of the monetary side of things for both you and her?
There are several options when it comes to money. Like for myself, because I'm writing this piece, and even if I got it picked up by a huge studio or a big backer, I would continue to want to produce this piece. Anything I write, I also have a hand in producing. I don't care who picks it up. I don't care if you're Warner Brothers or Universal or Sony or whomever. Like, I produce my work. And you oftentimes, if it's about a real person, they would get a consulting fee if they consult on the script, if they consult on the film, and the minute production starts is when that consulting fee is paid. And then you can also pay, I mean, if you're doing an option contract, if that's your first thing, you can pay anywhere from $10 to $10,000 just to have the right to turn this thing into a film or theater script. And a lot of people do that. So you have that. You can pay a fee up front. You can do a consulting fee plus a net profits fee. So once profit starts to be made, generally it's anywhere between 2.5 and 5% of net profits would go to the owner of the life story rights.
The story.
And then any sequels or made-for-TV movies or whatever would come after, that person would continue to get a specific dividend, usually 50% of what they were originally paid, in perpetuity for as long as sequels or whatever are being created or produced.
And you have a timeline within, like, you have to have this film ready to go by a certain point?
Usually it's the script has to be ready to go by a certain point. Yeah, the script has to be ready to go by a certain point. Give me a second. I have to itch my ear. Earbuds get itchy. COVID problems. First world quarantine problems.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a timeline for myself. So I've done option contracts in the past where, we have 24 to 36 months to turn a book that's been published into a stage play. So I've done that before. This is my first time doing an option/purchase contract for someone's actual life story rights. It's a very similar contract no matter what it is. It's just that the film terms and like lingo need to be in there as far as like money goes and production goes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the jargon. So this contract is a purchase, not an option. Like I am outright purchasing these life story rights. But instead of doing it in perpetuity, I've placed a period of time on it because if I don't get my shit together, I don't think I should just own someone's life rights forever.
100%.
That's just not 100%. Who I am.
Yeah. And who pays? So, and you have a production company that's going to purchase that on your behalf, or are you purchasing it yourself?
Right now I'm working completely independently on this. I have not spoken. Nobody knows what this is about other than my fiance and the friend who introduced us. There is money that is behind it already, individual money from an individual, not from a production company. Got
you. Silent partner sort of thing.
So my hope is that once the script is made, which for me, I'm hoping to have fully finished by end of 2020. Cross your fingers for me. It's a big one. It's a big script.
Have you any words on paper yet?
No, everything is outline. I just have outlines. Yeah, right. Nothing is.
Like your beats.
I know what the beginning of the film is. I know what the end of the film is, and I know where the switch in the middle is for me. Like there's something that happens right in the middle of the film that's going to be a massive, massive moment. So I know those three major beats, and it's everything in between that is not settled for me yet. I have ideas. I also have casting ideas. Like I know who I want to play certain roles. I just do. If you're out there, John Goodman.
I'm free, by the way,
John Goodman, I'm looking at you.
All right.
Asia.
Yeah. He's the kind of guy.
Asia Kate Dillon, I'm looking at you. So there are actors that I have in mind. And so, yeah, I don't really know what the goal, not the goal, I know what the goal is. I don't really know where it's going to go once I finish the script. It could end up being something I completely independently produce, which wouldn't be the first time. But I also think it is a very special story, and I think it will get picked up by somebody else. I have
Great.
I have
That's
almost
amazing.
complete faith that this story will get picked up by somebody.
Do you, in terms of the writing, and I just want to throw this in there for anyone listening, you helped me a lot with the park, actually, having a read, for sure. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for you taking the time to read it and the speed in which you did. You know, there is probably 20 people out there who've got a copy of this script that have never read it and haven't got back to me, and they're my friends. You know, like. So and I get it. That's not a dig at them. This is more just a big thank you for doing it, and it has had some major changes to the film, which serve it. Awesome. You know, which is great, because a lot of times you hear things and you're like, did you read it? Because that doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever, you know. And something that you said to me, which, and I would honestly say I don't agree with you 100% in terms of diversity, but you did say one thing to me which I thought was really, really powerful, and I have since heard someone else say it. Oh, I heard someone say the same thing in the new TV show Hollywood.
No way. They stole my line?
Yeah, and they said, right? And I said, yeah, but you know, the anti-poaching unit over there is right now is a bunch of white American dudes and girls. And you were saying about, you know, throwing some different nationalities in there, and you said, yeah, but you could tell a story of how it should be, or a place that we could get to. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right, actually. You know, as much as I wanted to like find a way to come back at that, and that's what they were saying in this show, is that you can't, you know, it's like the 40s. You can't have a black lead female in this film, because that's just not how it's done. And they're like, but shouldn't it be? You know, we have an obligation as storytellers to showcase a better world if we can, you know. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I actually just started watching Hollywood. I think I'm on like the 3rd episode, so I am following along with you pretty well. And it's a difficult thing, because I feel like, yes, art needs to reflect the world as it has been. It needs to reflect the world that we exist in now. But I do think that it needs to reflect the world as we want to see it, because how will we know where we want to go if we don't give people the idea that, oh, we can get there? It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. Yeah. Yeah, it's that unfortunate thing that we're in now, where it's that seesaw effect, right? When change comes, it comes 1,000% the other way, and then whoever lost their upper hand pulls back really hard, and it swings back the other way for a bit, and then hopefully when it settles, it's in the middle. You know, it's a shame to see. You know, I was listening to Joe Rogan recently, and he was talking about a friend of his who's written, I want to say a film, let's just say it's a film, but it's about whatever, gangs in the 30s in Manhattan, in I'm probably going to say this wrong, but did you guys call it Little Italy?
Yeah.
Italy?
Little Italy.
Yeah.
Little Italy.
And yeah, Little Italy. That's a hard one. And the powers to be wanting to change the lead real character to someone who's Asian or something like that, just to fill a diversity quota. And it's like, but that doesn't make any fucking sense at all, because they weren't and it wasn't. So we're telling a real story about things that really happened. Diversity doesn't apply here, because that's not how it was. You know, if you're telling a future story or you're telling a story now and you've got an all-white cast, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Unless you're in Iceland, you know,
even there.
like, you know, even there, but not as much. But, you know, if you walk down the street in any major metropolitan city, it's as fucking mixed as mixed, you know, like it really, really is. And so if you deny that, then that's a crime as well.
I think we're in an interesting place because we have shows like Hamilton that, you know, I saw its third week on Broadway and it blew my frickin' mind because I just never imagined history from that perspective. Plus the music was amazing and so was the choreography and it was just beautifully well done. But it's the whole show is contextualized. You have a very specific bubble in which it exists. And I think that there are some productions that are able to beautifully create their own bubble of this is history, but it's history our own way. Versus this is history and we're going to show it as it actually was. I think that there's room for both genres. I think it just depends on how you make it. I think it depends on the direction and the production team and the casting directors, and like you have to have a very clear vision about what you're trying to say and why you're trying to say it, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like to see it when it's done in the spirit of creativity and as a new way of looking at it, not for the sake of political pressure or I'm not going to get this over the line if I don't make it this way.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? But if it's like, yeah, do you know what I mean? Find that balance. You know, it's just like when you're doing acting classes and you are handed a female section and it's like, there's no reason why you can't play this as a male and recalibrate it. Like, and that's a great expression of creativity and also a great exercise in understanding different undertones and what have you of the writing there and the writing here and how it affects each person differently and their own experiences and what have you. But yeah, certainly for the sake of, I'm not a fan.
I don't know if I generally am either. In the end, I think for me, whatever makes the story more vibrant, more alive, more empathetic, more invigorating is what I'm going to be drawn towards. I don't care about anything but how well the story is being told.
Mm-hmm. I think that leads to a really good point too, in that if there is, you know, if the film does have a message, you know, that is important and needs to be told. If you can make some subtle changes here and there in the current climate, that means that more people are going to see it and it's going to be more effective, then I'm all for that too. You know, because there is a bigger objective than, like, say, for example, my film, The Park. The objective is that people on a global scale, through the power of cinema, get to understand what's happening in Africa right now. And disgustingly, it has escalated in the COVID-19 crisis. Poaching has gone through the roof, which humans are fucking disgusting. And that's just terrible that this is happening.
I was just there. So I was just there in the parks with the rhinos, like literally like 3 months ago. So like I feel you.
Fuck off. Really?
They can't even tell you. They're not even allowed to tell you in South Africa how many rhinos are in the parks, how many rhinos are in the country. They can't even tell you how many of the animals even exist because they don't want anyone to know the numbers because of people going after them. It's absolutely horrifying. In
Botswana right now, they are trying to round up the last of the rhino population and herd them to a different location, you know, something like 3,000 rhino to protect them from like a fucking, what's the word? Like an invasion of poachers. It's fucking insane. Oh, yeah. And it's and at the same time, what do you do? You know, well, there's a line in my film which I get from a very good friend of mine when we were first hashing out the juxtaposition of this conflict, and that is, he said, you know, there has to be duality of this story because if anyone, I would do terrible things to protect my child. if you've got 6 kids that are starving, you will do terrible things to make sure that they don't.
I think the most important question is not why are they doing it, but who is paying them and why. And oftentimes it is because there are black market traders from Asia who are using these horns from elephants and rhinos for medicines, for whatever herb remedies people are buying that do fucking nothing. And yet it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in Asia, and it is fucking insane.
It's
and we need to stop
insane.
them.
Well, that's a harder one to do. If you were to take away the necessity to have to turn to this kind of means to survive, then you would take away their workforce. And then they would have to somehow infiltrate with a much smaller band of poachers than, tens of thousands of starving farmers. So there's a bigger, like for example, if you were to try and crank something like that up here in Australia for something that was endangered, it would never take. You would not be able to get the masses to do it. You know what I mean? Because no one is that desperate. They can go on the dole and they don't have to risk their lives. But they don't have that option. You have to create a scenario where they can get by on like a standard basic
food,
income,
water, medicine, and everything. We are desperately failing the world. We're sitting here in our apartments with our iPhones and our microphones and all of our shit, and we are failing at least 2 to 3 billion people out in the world.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I scratched on something recently where someone was talking about all of this, but then they were also talking about there being an underlying psychological problem or something in Africa that it's not about. I mean, it's about many things, but there may also just be this troubled, like, collective consciousness that is always looking for a way to fuck itself up. Maybe, because people have been trying for so long to rectify it, and it ain't happening.
I think those are really murky waters to get into because what the fuck do we know? I know.
Yeah, no. This was from from an African person was saying this. This was an educated African person. This wasn't a white person trying, like you said, white people trying to solve problems of Africa. This was an African person saying this, and I just thought, so this was, they were like coming at on the far end of years and years and years and years of struggle. Collective consciousness is a real thing. It is so ingrained. But anyways, I didn't know what the fuck. Like, I'm not. Who am I to pass judgment or to make assertions on something I have no idea about? But it is. It's always been that way. And how do you change such a convoluted, multi-layered fucking shitstorm? Like, it's brutal. But seemingly, at least Vetpoor have done amazing things in the Kruger.
Yeah.
And before this COVID crisis hit, they were down sort of 30%. That was in terms of, they were at about 1,100 a year, and they were sort of down to 700 or something like that, which is since they had come in. They're doing lots of things, but fucking hell.
I think the most important thing that we can do, other than donating money to people who are boots on the ground, is to continue having these conversations. I think
100%.
Educating each other is the most important thing we can do.
I would say I agree with you wholeheartedly. And one thing, I've probably talked about the film on every episode, and I would say that you are one of 2, maybe 3, who actually know what I'm talking about to a greater extent. Everyone knows that there's poachers and everyone knows that rhinos are endangered, but to the extent and the why and the how and the who, no one knows.
There was a really
crazy.
Beautiful play at the Public. I think it was last season, I think maybe 2018 into 2019, called Malima's Tale. And a friend of mine, Ito, was in it. And it was all about poaching elephants for their tusks. And it was so heartbreaking and so beautiful. And the elephant was played by it was a man, but he was a man, but he was an elephant. And they used shadows to kind of play with the enormosity, I guess, of the elephant. It was just so stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so affected by it because, we don't see plays about that. We aren't seeing on an international level, on television, in commercials, in film. We're not seeing these problems that have existed for decades now. They're just not being talked about. So it was just really emotional to see someone writing about it so beautifully and it being staged so beautifully for the masses to see, for 20,000 people who go through the public for a show to actually see and understand.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's amazing. Yeah. There is an increasing number of things being done to try and bring awareness to this. And so far, there is a film called Sides of a Horn, which is, and I haven't seen it, so I could be wrong, but from the trailers and what I've read, and I'm pretty sure Richard Branson produced it. But it is from the perspective of the poacher, so that we can get an insight into why, from their perspective. That's what it seems like.
Branson's an interesting guy, so that wouldn't be surprising. 100%.
And I read recently that that Tom Hardy and Leonardo DiCaprio back in 2012 had a film which, for the most part, kind of mimics the film that I've written, in the former SAS soldier that finds himself in Africa and starts working for an anti-poaching unit. But of course, they would have been a different story in that they would have been the lead and the hero and what have you, whereas in mine you have a mixed-race African woman who's grown up there her whole life and has now become the head of an anti-poaching unit. But it's not in the ether anymore. It disappeared, and then I don't think they even had a script. I think they just had the idea, but there was an article and it vanished.
Can I say something about that? When working on option and purchase contracts, this actually goes back to those option contracts. It's so unbelievable. It's nothing we create as original. It came from somewhere else. And the best artist, to steal from my friend Leah McKendrick, who's an amazing screenwriter, steal everything that you can. Just steal it all. It's not stealing it just to steal. It's stealing it to make it your own and absorb it and then birth out this beautiful new thing. But oftentimes when you have this great idea and you're too afraid to write it because someone else wrote something similar or there are 10 other people also working on something, oftentimes those projects never happen and yours ends up being the one. So get those story rights or write that script or pitch it to whomever, but just do it, because it's you and Leo may have the same idea, but like you said, Leo's thing didn't happen. There's probably 2 or 3 other people out there writing something similar, but those also probably won't happen. So the possibility of yours 100%. Being the thing is it's pretty high, actually.
You have to, you can't let that come into the equation, or else you'll never write anything. Especially some of the books that I've read about the cognitive side of storytelling is that if you have an idea, you've plucked it out of the ether, out of the universe somewhere. A fucking 1,000 other writers are dialing into that same program or that same thing that is collectively happening amongst those consciousness. So don't think that you're the only one who's just had this miraculous idea, but you may be, just like you just said, the only one who gets it through. And that's just sheer, there's obviously talent as a writer, but that these days is not going to get you there. It's everything else that you bring to the table.
80% of it is luck. You getting cast in your first Broadway play, you getting to play opposite Kate Blanchett. You may be talented, I'm sure you are, but it's luck. It's not God. It's not fate. It's not destiny. It's just
Totally.
luck. It's happenstance. It's chance. And
Yeah.
so, but the work that you do to get to being lucky enough for that to happen is what's important.
That's what's important. Yeah. Well, I reckon that's probably a good place to wrap it up, my dear friend Yvonne.
I know. I can't believe we've been talking
Thanks very
for so
much.
long.
I know, right? That's an
I
hour and a
know.
half, I think. That's
Goes
pretty
fast.
good. I really, really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the fact that we still talk from time to time and you're taking the time to talk to me today. I know that it's pretty hectic over there. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.